Great. I'm Mathew Mulica, and I'm a mediator and facilitator for the Keystone Policy Center. And so we are a group that brings together different stakeholders into collaborative efforts and coalitions to solve hard problems. Sure. So the Honeybee Health Coalition was started in 2014, and we brought together a number of different sectors and stakeholders to discuss how to move forward with, improving honeybee health. And so there are a lot of organizations in the United States working on bee health. We work at the intersection of agriculture and beekeeping. And so we brought together the beekeepers with the crop associations and agribusiness, universities, government agencies, and other nonprofits working in this area. And so we came together and to discuss whether there's a need. So the first question was, do we need to exist? And so, like you're doing, we did a number of interviews with all of the stakeholders. We probably did 40 interviews and talked about what was going on, what they were working on, and whether there was a need for a new coalition on honeybees and agriculture. After our first meeting, which was attended by maybe 25 different organizations and entities and federal agencies, we decided, yes, there really is a reason to come together. And so we agreed upon a charter. So what were the rules of governance? How is it going to work? Who was going to make the decisions? Who was going to be at the table? What were we going to be working on? And we decided to work on 4 main areas. So crop pesticides, forage and nutrition, hive management, and then outreach and education. So the fourth one, outreach and education, was when we come up with ways to improve bee health, we had to get that information into the right hands. So we formed the 4th working group. Bee Health Coalition, develops best management practices, tools. We try to change behavior. So the 2 primary audiences that we're trying to change behaviors from are farmers and beekeepers. There are a lot of other groups in the United States working on providing information to the general public for the bees that fly around your backyard, the bees that are impacted by landscaping chemicals. We focus on what happens in the fields and in the hives. So how do you protect bees from inadvertent impacts from pesticides, provide bee growers with good pesticide stewardship practices that may not necessarily be on the label, so that they can improve bee health. So that's the pesticide applicators, farmers, and not just ways to not harm bees, but also ways to improve bee health, like planting forage. So that's on the farmer side. On the beekeeper side, we work a lot on Varroa. And so in the United States, and I imagine in Colombia, there are commercial beekeepers who truck the bees around the country and pollinate the crops that we eat. And there are small scale beekeepers who are beekeepers as a hobby. And we have about 2.5 million hives in the United States, and a lot of those hives, they're driven by pollination services and also honey production. So the beekeepers start in in almonds, where they take about 2 million hives per year to pollinate about 85% of Earth's almond supply. And then they go through all the same crops that I imagine you have: blueberries and melons and cucumbers, peppers, berries, and they, just like in Colombia, they drop the bees off, and so we really work on these practices, but also we work on the relationship building and trust between the growers, the beekeepers, and the agribusiness. And so that is, it was more in 2014, a very strained relationship, right? There was not a lot of trust. There was a lot of accusations, and the two sides didn't see eye to eye. They didn't see each other's perspective. They didn't understand where one another were coming from. And so that was a really important step, is introducing people and saying, shake hands, break bread, have a meal together, let's know each other. And, there's always the opportunity to, not collaborate, but that's not working very well. So how can we do better? So there's a couple principles that the Honeybee Health Coalition was founded upon that are really important. The first is, let's strive towards action. We all have a lot of meetings. We don't just need to meet to say we're collaborating. We need to do something. And so that's the first principle. So we always are striving towards action. The three main stressors of bee health decline are lack of forage and nutrition, incidental pesticide exposure, and Varroa mites and other pests and pathogens in the hive. And we do not put relative weights on those. We don't say it's Varroa. No, it's pesticides. No, it's forage and nutrition. We say it's all of these things, and we work on all of them equally. So there'll always be someone who has a notion that one's more important than the other, but it's a system that has created bee health decline, and we all have to play a part. A couple other principles. We are technology neutral. We don't talk about GMO versus organic versus, we stay out of that. So that's not something we talk about. We, are pre-competitive. So there are competitors at the table, like in agribusiness, like Syngenta and Bayer, for example. And so we are pre-competitive. So we, because of antitrust rules, especially, we don't talk about anything that is, would inflict on those antitrust rules in the United States. So that's really important for us. And, we agree to listen. We agree not to talk over each other. We agree to disagree, but disagree respectfully. And we started to understand the rules and regulations that governed, these industries, so that both sides could understand, like, the constraints that people have in their jobs. And then we got out and talked to farmers and beekeepers at various trade shows and understood their issues. And we developed guidance for them. So a lot of the stuff is really complicated. And so if you're a pesticide applicator, then we have a guidance in a document, also PowerPoint slides and one-page documents, like short documents that try to make it more simple, and take something that's very complicated and make it able to be understood. So for Varroa, we have the Varroa guide, which talks to beekeepers about how to manage Varroa. We have 12 videos on how to control Varroa, how to tell if you're over threshold and need to treat for Varroa, either through a chemical or a cultural technique, a non-chemical technique. We have best management practices that we've developed for various crops. So in the United States, we have BMPs, best management practices for protecting pollinators and having healthy crops in almonds and soybeans, in corn, in canola. We're developing one for apples, and so that's been really important. We also provide beekeepers with, other information on other pests and disease, like small hive beetle and nosema and foul brood. And so for both of these audiences, we are trying to create materials that can be used by all levels of beekeepers and farmers. So in the United States, we had the federal government at the table from the beginning. And so they were very interested. They have a lot of programs that work with farmers and beekeepers to improve bee health and to have healthy crops. And so they helped us, with sharing that information so that beekeepers and growers could access it. We also work with the government on improving their programs. So there's a real win-win when you have this really diverse group of people, really smart people all together in kind of a brain trust, right? In bringing all these viewpoints together, then everyone benefits. And so that's been a huge success for us is getting folks together to brainstorm. Okay, here's the problem. How are we going to fix it? What tools do we have at our disposal? What are people going to listen to? Who is the right person to deliver the message? They don't want to hear from me, the facilitator. They want to hear from other farmers. They want to hear from other beekeepers. They want to hear from their beekeeping association. We stand by this, and you should do this because it's good for the bees. And the farmers, so the crop associations, the grower associations, they're all at the table. So a corn farmer doesn't want to hear from me, right? They want to hear from their fellow farmers who are the leaders of the farming community to say, these are good practices. You should really do this. And they also know what the farmers and beekeepers will do. Right. So we can't ask for something that no one's going to do because what's the point? And so it's really important that the people whose behaviors you're trying to change are sitting at the table with you because they know what's realistic to happen in the field and in the crop and in the hive. So just be open to what other people are saying, that when someone starts talking, just listen. And it's sometimes we just start to form our response before someone stops talking and we stop listening. So that's one thing. Another thing is when you have these initial meetings, as you get going, we found it really helpful for the expert group to go out into the fields together and to put on bee suits that maybe you've never worn a bee suit and to hold a hive and to understand what's going on in there. And for the same to go out into the crops and so that you're walking a mile in each other's shoes. And so you can have these real conversations. And it takes some time, right? So don't be patient. It took, a few years to break down the barriers for us. It's 2021. We started in 2014. We are still having hard conversations, but they're done respectfully and we're making progress. And so it's been really important to just, be patient and for everyone to come into these conversations with an open mind and really focus on the problem that you're all trying to fix together.